7 years ago, I had the good fortune of being introduced to Karen James, our next speaker. It was her, I'm going to cry, it was her quirky, self-deprecating humour that initially attracted my attention. But it was her huge intelligence and humanity that kept me there. She was launching Women in Focus for Commonwealth Bank, and I was launching the first incarnation of what we now know to be She Business. We have travelled parallel paths, and in her role at Women in Focus, she was and has been an ever-available supporter of mine. Earlier this year, I saw her take to the stage for the launch of her book, On Purpose, which is available here today. She walked on that stage in an electric blue suit and brogues, and I knew she had arrived. She shared her intention that within the next 12 months, she would deliver a TED Talk. I was like a proud mama. Secretly, I believed that I had an impact on her dress style. And I knew I could do something to help her get one step closer to her goal. I could invite her to speak at Fearless. She is a woman who lives on purpose. It is in her DNA. And so keen was she for others to do the same, she created a framework and then wrote a book to help guide others who also wanted to live on purpose. She did that in the space of, I don't know, less than 12 months. Purpose is a cornerstone of creating the life of your dreams. So please welcome to the stage the funny, fast-talking Karen James.
So people ask me not to dance in public because I just kind of do this. And so I was going to take my jacket off because I wanted to have like my lower arms dance for you. Because did anyone see Susie's arms? When she was up there, I was like, oh my God, thank God I wore a jacket. Like, because I know what's going on under this. But I decided that I did not need to humiliate myself like that. And I don't know if I shaved my armpits. So I thought best to not amplify, and I've got this skin tag that I've been meaning to get rid of, and I just thought, no, don't do that. And I use natural deodorant, and the list just goes on. So before I start, I'd like to pay my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, of elders past and present on which this event takes place. You know, so my role today is I'm here to deliver a workshop-style speech. So you're not going to hear a lot about my personal life, although I have a very good birth story as well. But I'm just going to talk about the work I've been doing and hopefully give you some frameworks that may, add value to your year in 2016. So, 1933, American President Franklin Roosevelt, addressing a nation mired in depression and on the verge of a world war, famously said, and I'm sure many of you have heard about this, I put it in my book, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, right? Everybody's heard that. Fear is universal. It crosses all boundaries of race, culture, religion, and generation. We all feel fear. And I think social media has really amplified the possibility that people don't have fear because, people are posting all this stuff and you're like, look at them, look at what they're doing. Oh my God, they're so amazing. And I think, the greatest, we have to recognize that the greatest enemy that we face is actually fear itself. So I decided to spend a little time on this because this is one of my favorite events because I think fear is such an important topic that it's worth unpacking. So I've did the work for this presentation, came up with 5 ideas that I think are really, fundamental to living a fearless life. I think the first one is discovering the foundation of fear. So one of them that I talk about in my book is your underberg. The stuff that has happened to you that has created fears that stop you. And I believe everybody has an underberg. Everybody's got a story of something that happened that kind of has stained you. It's probably happened after, hopefully, kindergarten and not before. And once you know what that is, you can actually push through it, And I write about my ex-PA, and she's allowed me to speak about this publicly. You know, she is a nightmare, Ruthie, when she thinks it's her fault. She's like, it's not my fault. And I said, can I make you a case study? You know, and I said, what is wrong with you? Why can't you take a little heat? And it was because when she was 8, she took her little brother in the car, and it was a manual, and put the handbrake off, and it rolled back and crashed, and, you know, parents screamed at her. And it was fantastic, because ever since that moment, when we worked together, I could be like, are we having a handbrake moment? And she'd be like, I think so. And I'd be like, okay, can you now say, yes, I forgot to call Susie Jacobs back and missed the deadline? Yes. And, you know, it kind of, getting to know that Underberg is so important. You know, the next one, really old saying, I don't know if it's famous in Australia, fear and worry are interest paid in advance on something you may never own. You know, like, just ditch the worry. We worry, we worry, we worry. And, you know, we could all be toast tomorrow. Like, take it off your list. Easy said, but at least if we have that front of mind, it's there. You know, and then the third one on the discovering the foundation, which I think is very relevant as we live post all of the issues with ISIS. You know, Aristotle said, fear is pain arising from anticipation of evil. Fear is pain arising from anticipation of evil. You know, if we worry about evil and we don't, we let it pull us in, they win. So we have to fight the good fight. And the fourth one on discovering the foundation is, you know, I believe that sometimes fear is physical. I wanted to share this story with you. I've had this career where I've managed crises and all these things, and I'm thinking, I've got this, for the last month, I've had this outrageous anxiety. It's been crippling. And I'd wake up with it, and it would be on my chest. And every time I told an entrepreneur, they'd be like, get over it. And it would just make it worse. And so I decided that this has got to be physical. So I decided it was from menopause. And I think we need to say that word out loud, anyone who's in it, menopause. Women don't talk about it. It's a real thing. And I was sweating. I'm like, it's the pause. So I went back to my acupuncturist, and he's like a hot 28-year-old guy, Lucas. And I worry that because I am single, am I here because I'm ill? No. Or do I just need to, no. And so hot Lucas is like, this could be it. So we worked on it, and 4 treatments. And I probably don't need a 5th, but I'm going in just for one more, a little treat. Hello, Lucas. I hope no one knows him. Does anyone know Lucas, the acupuncturist? No. Do you? No, that's so funny. Anyway, and it's gone. The anxiety is gone. And I'm like, it was physical. So it could be physical. Don't negate that. There you go. So that's my menopause story of the month. Number 2, come clean, talk about it. I think sharing your fears is really important. And once you do that, it helps. Courage does not equal the absence of fear. Just because you're courageous doesn't mean you don't have fear. So when you talk about it, it helps. Take counsel and take on that feedback. And then I think as an engineer, fear is about a risk calculation. I've been very worried about cash flow. It's been consuming me. And I met with my mentor, Ronnie Khan, who always slaps me in the face. I don't know if you know her. She's a tough South African. She's the founder of Oz Harvest. She's like, Karen, get over it. If this doesn't work, get a job. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, and that's when I, still had the anxiety. I'm like, it's menopause. Number 4, I'm going to send her an email, actually, and tell her that. Number 4 is vision trumps fear. I'm a big fan of vision. What's going to happen in 2020? Having a vision is the most important thing. When I was 15, my vision was, I am getting out of New Jersey. I don't know if you've ever been there. Ever been there? Drive down the turnpike? It's a disaster. No one wants to stay there. I know Nicole's here. She's from New York. Very different. All the pollution goes to Jersey. So I said, I'm out. I'm out of Jersey. And my mother always used to say, I always believed you live in it and thought you go to the other side of the planet. Vision is really, really important. And I'm going to slip in an Ashley story. My daughter's listening to me, which always makes me very anxious. And I put up on my little study, right, Ash? We bought a desk. It was so sad. It was like, I didn't have a job. She's like, Mom, you don't have a job, but you've got a desk. And I said, I'm going to write a book. And she's like, no, you're not. Bless. You just need to get another job. And I decided, that's not nice, Ash. And she kept saying it, didn't you, Ashley? Acknowledge to the room. She's right there. Look, everybody. Yep, you did that, right? And then I got out this spray from Bush Essence called Space Clear, and I started space clearing her. I said, get out, get out, get out, you beast, until you believe in me. Do you remember? I'll loop that in at the end, don't worry. And so I stuck a thing on the wall. I'm going to write a book. And then you got to focus on what you can control. You know, I came from a household that was a little dodgy. You know, I think now it would be called domestic violence. And my mother was amazing. And she had a prayer on our wall, and it was the Serenity Prayer. And I remember that and read it through my whole life. And it's, you know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's really important. I know I don't have Susie's legs or arms, which is why I have a jacket on and low crotch pants. Because I have accepted that I cannot change the cankles that my poor daughter Ashley has inherited. True. Stop it. So there's the 5 things I'm suggesting you do to unpack the fear. Just checking my time. Solid. 10 steps to living life on purpose. So what happens when you write a book is you speak about it, and then you get ideas that you forgot to put in the book. So some of these are in the book, some of them aren't. And I'm debating on whether I use my PowerPoint. I don't know if I'm going to. Whatever. Sorry? Well, I'm looking at Alex. What do you think, Alex? I don't know. It's Prezi, and I worked hard on it. Let's get it up. Let's get it up. Let's show these guys. And, you know, this is good, you know, because I put that logo in, and that took me a long time. All right, there it is. That's slide 1. So I'm not going to move the slides until I get to a few. So step 1, you need to care. Now, a lot of you guys care because, one, you're here, and a lot of you run your own businesses, but a lot of people that you may work with may not care, right? And like you have to have people that care. They have to care about customers. They have to care about the business. They actually have to care about themselves. And if you don't care enough, then, and your people don't care enough, it's gonna cause problems. And it sounds really simple, but I've worked with so many people that don't care. Like, I describe this person as the family guy, whether it's girl or guy. Have you ever worked with someone who's, everybody says, oh yeah, they're such a good family person, but they don't really care about you as an employee because they're there looking after their family, getting the big salary, doing this. But, you know, caring is about everybody, all the constituents. It's a really important factor. And I think that that's fundamental, starting point. The second one is the stand. And I talk about this a lot. You know, you got to be really clear what you stand for, what you're going to stand by, and what you're never, ever going to stand with. And when you know that, that's your rock, and that's your thing you stand on, and that gives you the courage, because you're like really clear. You know, your black is black, your white is white, your yes is yes, your no is no. And things like, you know, lazy language, you can call it. You know, if somebody says something like, no, I don't think so, because I don't stand for that. And I think without being really clear on that, call it your ethics. I think, you know, you might steer your ship somewhere that it might not go. You know, how did Volkswagen hit the rock? You know, well, their stand wasn't strong enough. They had too many pebbles on their foundation. And so they thought they could just call something the switch software, and it would be okay. It's not okay. Do you know that they think that the European emission standards have not been met singly because of Volkswagen's emissions, because everyone swapped to diesel, because they thought they were doing the right thing? That's outrageous. We are running out of time for people to have this kind of behavior. And this is what I spoke about yesterday on Life Matters, if I could just drop that in. I'm so excited. It took me 4 months. You know, you can't, it's just not okay. So what's your stand? And I think that's something I really learned in banking, you know? Most fraud in banking happens in the banks, right? It's in the banks. And, you know, that's a terrifying experience as a manager. Black is black, white is white. Then it's your character, you know, your behaviors. You've just got to be consistent. And I always say to everybody, like, when you're a leader, people look to you. Like, if you're having a bad day and you're the leader, stay home. Because people look at you every day. You know, people read you. You know, people read you. I walked in here. The first thing, I walked over to go get mic'd up, and the first thing Ashley said to me, she said, "What's wrong, Mom?" right? Because she can read me like a book. It's a nightmare as a mother. There is no poker in my household. And it's because I get nerves before I speak. I say, it's nerves. She's like, oh God. So, be consistent with your character. If you're going to be a leader, make sure you say hello every morning. There's no kind of walking past everybody. You've got to have that. And when you, as a person, show care, have a stand, and build character, I think that's the trust equation. That's 1, 2, 3 equals trust. And then there's the values. What's important right now? And values change. I think people mix up values with your ethics, your stand, and your character. Values are what's important, which is why innovation is on everybody's list. Of course it's an important value. We're in the age of digital disruption. So, they could be anything. And most people stick them on the wall. And where the rubber hits the road is when you live those values. So if you're the innovative leader and someone comes up with a crazy idea, you embrace it. You don't, no. So my favorite values are justice. I think it's time to take the C out of CSR. I think it's time for everyone to live more just, and social justice has to be everyone's job, not the silo in the organization. I think we live in a very unjust world, and as women, we know that all too well. And I'm sure we all have a story of justice about what, in our life. I have like 100 of them. And it's just time's out on that. And I think we've got to be really firm. Courage, I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. Imagination, I wanted to share quickly, why I think imagination is important. Imagination is different than empathy. Empathy kind of brings up a little pity, like, no, people are like, oh, I feel bad for you. J.K. Rowling gave this great commencement speech at Harvard. She says, the unique human capacity to envision that which is not, and therefore the fount of all invention and innovation, in its arguably most transformative and revelatory capacity. It is the power that enables us to empathize with humans whose experiences we have never shared. Unlike any other creature on this planet, human beings can learn and understand without having experienced. We can think of ourselves into other people's places. This is what imagination lets us do. It's not pity-fueled, it's imagination. It's, I can imagine what that must be like. And I think leaders who imagine themselves in other people's places, pulls power out of introspection. I think it sees the injustice in a simple sentence. Like when you're standing there and, you get referred to as the girl. I mean, if I hear one more man refer to the receptionist as the girl, I call that every time, because we don't call them the boys unless we're going to the pub or the footy. And so I think imagination lets us write new stories where empathy doesn't write a new story. And I think when we switch that language, we switch our behaviors. And when you add those four together, what you care for, what you stand for, your character and your values, you get this amazing trusted belief, and people will follow you because they believe in you and they trust you, which brings us to purpose. I might change my slide just for fun. Okay. Apparently you have to turn it on. Good thing I've got 2 engineering degrees. Okay, so this is my ones and zeros, right? I love binary logic. There were 24 transformational technologies. They're called general purpose technologies on the planet. 12 were done over 12,000 years. The other 12 have been done over the last 140, which is why we live at a time like no other. And this is why we have to act like we've never acted before. 2 of them were the steam engine and digital technology. And these last 12 have created the intractable issues that we now have in the planet with everyone meeting in Paris. So binary logic is incredible because it's like either on or off. And I'm giving this as a metaphor to purpose, right? You're either on or off purpose. So with binary logic, I don't know if you know much about it, but pretty much every smartphone in the room and every piece of digital technology runs on it. It's just how things get coded. And it's really simple. It's a signal, and it's either on or off. And it looks something like this. And that line in the middle determines whether or not it's going to be interpreted as a 1 or a 0. And each piece of digital circuitry has a bit of tolerance, a bit of, we can take a little bit of that. But once you go above the tolerance, you start to get errors. And in the early days of digital technology, this would look like networks resetting. This would look like garbage on your phone. When your phone does something really weird and you're like, what happened? And you reset it and all's good. It's usually because you've slipped in between digits. Because what could be one thing becomes another simply because of one little digit. And this is what I believe purpose is like. You're either on purpose or you're off purpose. There's nothing in between. And for me, purpose is foundational. It's the rudder of your ship that steers you. And I believe you've got to be really clear on your personal purpose and really clear on your work purpose. And my contention is you slap them together and you're living an on-purpose life. Because when you have those two things disconnected, you end up serving one really well and not the other. And, you know, I wanted to share some examples of people that I believe are living an on-purpose life. And some of you may have met these guys if you came to my book launch. This is Nina and Joseph. They run the shoe shop at Northridge Plaza. And they are living an on-purpose life because Nina loves the customers and Joseph just wants to keep the trade going. And they fix everything for our family. They do it all for $10 because they really like us. You guys are like $30 for everything else. Yesterday, I handed Ashley, true story, this candle. You know, it's not a candle, it's like a candle holder. It's about this big, it broke. And they fixed it. How much did they charge? They didn't charge? He did it for free. He did it for free because he believes in us as a family. And could you imagine if everybody had that relationship with their shoemaker? And everyone, I believe we've got to move out of transactional life and into relational life. And everyone I do business with, I either kiss them or I hug them. And that's why I love these guys. And here is the non-stoppable Ronnie Khan. Look at her purpose, right? I love that. It's to nourish the country. Ronnie does not pick up food and deliver it. That is not what Ronnie does. Ronnie serves the entire country. She is going to Bangkok to launch in Bangkok. She went to Peru to launch with the UN. She's got a Cooking for a Cause course. She feeds the hearts and minds of companies. She feeds the hearts and minds of 400 distribution channels. She has more volunteers than any organization I've ever seen. And she looks after the end user, the customer, the homeless, the despair, and the women that end up in refuges with no food. You know, the Duchess of Cornwall, no, not Kate, no, Charles. Camilla, thank you. I met her. How bad is that? I met her and I forgot her name. Just saying. She picked one, her and Charles, I like to call him Chuck. See, Americans, we like the world, he's funny. They picked one place, one non-for-profit to go, and they went there. And this is the character of Ronnie. Every single person there was either a volunteer or a foundation member or a donor or a distribution channel. And she invited me. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? And it's just because that's what Ronnie's like, you know? She knew that that would nourish me, so she invited me. Not because of my funding, certainly, not now. And this is the random guy. Ashley's like, Mom, did you hire this guy? I'm like, no, he's the hot, I don't know if you think, he kind of looks like the guy from 50 Shades of Grey, doesn't he? But he's not that guy. He's the guy that helped me put this marketing together. But he represents Bob the banker in my fable. And this is the guy that's lost, who's off purpose. You know, he's coming out of work, he's ticking boxes, or she. You know, some days they're on purpose, they get it. Other days they're in meetings, they don't really know why they're there. They're coming home late, the kids are in bed, didn't see them, missed another family holiday. You know, they're just not on purpose. They're not taking care of their health. It's just the image of the person who's a little bit lost. So my contention is marry the home and the work purpose, whack them together. So I always like to just share my personal purpose and my work purpose now, because I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So my personal purpose was to make generational improvement. I wanted my kids to have a better life than I did, and I worked really hard on that. And so I had to embed that in the way we lived our lives, and I'll speak more about that. And my business purpose now is to build a better world, because I'm very worried about our world. I think we've got really big societal and ecological issues, and I'm not worried about climate change, I'm just worried about ecocide in general. You know, take out the bees, don't worry about heating up the planet, and the whole planet crashes. So I don't mean to get too serious because it is a fun lunch, but I think everybody's got to have a big purpose to address that, because we're all in that together. The next one is vision. You know, I love vision. You know, take your purpose and weave it into a tapestry that gives you this rich, colorful vision. Like in 2020, I will, and just put it up there. You know, in 2020, my vision, and I like to state things in public, so I haven't done the TED Talk yet. That's still on my list, wherever Susie is. But in 2020, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to reach 25 million people. That's what I want to do. And I'm obsessed with it because I have this burning platform to do that. And I don't, you know, I'm just putting it out there. And you know, if I get there, and I've decided not to put a monetary number on it. And I'd also like to remarry. And I like to say that publicly because digital dating's not working for me. So if anybody knows a hot 50-year-old guy, 300 women, you may know 10 people, there's 3,000 possibilities. Both kids are out of school, I am free now. See Ashley for my contact details. You don't even have to buy a book, just take the card and send me the man. Those are my two big goals. But I'd like to hit the second one before 2020 because the drought is really starting to hurt. Okay, and then I think step 7, you know, your strategy. What is the cunning plan? You can't have purpose and vision without a cunning plan. I just did some work for a big company. I won't name the type because there's only a few left, but it's a primary industry. And they did a big health study, you know, organizational health study. And, you know, everyone believes in the vision. Everybody loves the CEO, but their staff motivation levels are like below 10%. And they're like, so I did an audit. And I said, it's because nobody knows how you're going to get there. Nobody's clear on the strategy. How are you going to get from here? Their vision goes to 2030. Nobody's clear on that. So you got to show the way you're going to get there. So that's number 7. Just checking my time. Number 8, you have to have this embedded in your operation. You know, everything you do has to reflect your purpose. It's no good talking about it. You know, you've got to like just embed it in procedure and policy, key performance indicators and bonus structures and every torturous operating policy that you've got. And my favorite example is the policy. I thought, well, if I'm going to have generational improvement, I've got to have someone in the household calling my behavior because I could slip into, you know, bad parenting. And so we have what my youngest daughter calls the democratic parenting policy. And I implemented, it's called the parenting policy, and she's added democratic to it. And it's a nightmare because they get to call me on stuff, right? So quick story, you know, and Ashley's here, I'm gonna talk about her because I like that. She's pretty smart, right? And she's smarter than me, and it's really annoying because whenever she does her implementation of parenting policy, in my heart I know she's probably right. So she drove me here because she's my slave today, and we came down the road, and I said, what we're going to do is we're going to get to the roundabout, and we're going to empty out all the books and all the bags. We're going to walk it across, and we're going to carry it in. One of us is going to wait here, the other person is going to carry it. What's going to do? And she just looks at me, and there's buses and kids everywhere. And she goes, don't you think it would just be better if we went in the car park and put it in the lift? And because it was, you know, it was an easy one, I was like, yes. But it's not always that easy. So my favorite story, and I apologize if you've heard the story because I love the story. So really quick, it's HSC, and Ashley, by the way, I say these things about you when you're not in the room. So Ashley wanted to get a very high score. I'm not going to tell you her score because she wouldn't like if I did that. But she was obsessed with getting a 99. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a nightmare. And she's a perfectionist. So the HSC was a traumatic terrorist experience for me. And so on the way home from work one day, you know when you're in those convenience stores, I bought her a little, you know, plastic wrapped banana bread, thinking, oh, $3.50, she'll be so excited. And I come home and I'm like, Ashley, using my best sing-song North Shore voice, Ashley, when I really feel like dropping some bombs. It's go, anyway, so Ashley sings song, I brought you some banana bread. And she comes out, and we have a semi, so we got the long hallway and 2 bedrooms. First door out, she goes, do you really think I need full-fat banana bread right now? Look at me, I've put on weight. Do you really think that? And I'm just like, okay. And I really, really want to yell. And I just stand there, and I'm like twitching. And so something happens, and the banana bread leaves my hand and flies down the hall. And she just looks at me, and she goes, did you just throw that banana bread at me? And my youngest daughter pops her head out. And she's kind of funny. She goes, looks like a bad parenting moment to me. Steps back in. And I said, Ashley, if I was going to throw that banana bread at you, it would have hit you. It was just a release. You know, so you've got to have the policy in your business so that your behavior can be called. And we did this when I was at CBA, which is highly hierarchical, and it transformed our business. We went from a net promoter score of 30 to 32%, which is not good, to the high 70s in less than 18 months. Very hard to do in a large bank. And it was purely by putting in these kind of policies so that when the executive general manager did something, we were all about to say, do you really think that was the right thing? And we called it. So that's an 8. Number 9 is technology. You know, your tech has got to power your purpose. You know, if your purpose is, you know, to build a better world, like mine is, you know, my social media has to reflect that. Now, I'm not saying I've nailed that yet because I do have this selfie strategy going on, which I would like to take a selfie before I leave the stage, if that's all right with you, Susie. It's part of my strategy. Excellent. But your technology has to power your purpose. Let's pick on Volkswagen, right? If your purpose is to sell cars, fantastic. But if you tout that diesel is more efficient, great. But then, you know, if your purpose is to save fuel, well, it's got to be to save emissions. That's like a half a purpose. You can't have one without the other. So your technology needs to power your purpose. And, you know, last but not least, the one I think that often gets overplayed on social media and less in execution is you've got to have thanks, grace, and humility. You got to put pride in your back pocket, ego in your back pocket. You know, one of the most powerful things I ever did was make the decision to lay down my income, which hurt, my identity, which I didn't think would hurt, but I learned that later, and my influence. You know, when you've got a little diamond next to your name, people open doors for you, and you think maybe they're your buddies until you put the diamond in a drawer. And you're like, oh, wait a second. And what came out of that was an enormous amount of humility. And it was probably the most important thing for me as a person. But the other thing that came out was a real understanding of who my true friends were in business. My friendships are solid. Talking about my business friends. And, you know, I just want to talk about Susie, not to suck up, but because I really, really mean it. You know, the first person to invite me to speak after I launched my book was Susie. And I get emotional about it because, you know, people, we're all that, our relationships, that's all we have. You know, that's it. That's the bottom line. And, you know, what I learned was there were relationships that I thought were real that weren't. And now a couple of them are like, hey, Kaz, you know, ever since I got on Life Matters, hey. I'm like, no, you know. And I just think that, you know, having that depth of character and that loyalty, I just want to publicly thank you, Susie, because we've been there for each other, and we've been on each other's journeys, and we've been through a lot. And I just thank God that you're in my life, because you've made a big difference to me. And I want to circle back. I have 19 seconds. I'm not going to show you the rest of the slides. They're all on my website for free. It's a template to get you to live life on purpose. And before I forget, my long-awaited mobile app that I'm offering for free will be on my website before Christmas. If it is the last thing I do in my life, I'm on the phone with my developers tonight, but I did create this little paper model, which you can get from Ash over there. But, you know, I want to share a story of belief, you know, and it links, funny enough, ironically, to Queenstown. So I wrote this book fast in 7 weeks, and that was the window Wiley gave me. They're like, we got an opening January 20th. They gave me the deal late November. I was like, okay. And I came up with this intense project plan. But I had a trip with my best friend to Queenstown. We were going to do the Milford Track and meet our younger daughters in Queenstown. So she had just had breast cancer in November. And I got the book deal right after she got the all clear. And so she said, well, you're going to cancel New Zealand? I said, absolutely not, because this may never happen again. I'm not doing it. You're my best friend. We're doing the walk. So I came up with this cunning plan, because I'm always up to the cunning plans, that I would write the whole book before we got on the plane, January 5th. And then I would, because Ashley owed me $1,200, and I was like, yes, teenager in debt with an IQ level, excellent. So I gave Ashley the raw manuscript and said, you've got 5 days to get this in Wiley standard format, and I'm going to pay you by the hour, go. And when we got back, because you know, when you do the Milford track, you're offline, there's no digital anything. She said, Mom, I'm going to need 3 more days. I'm like, that's not in the run sheet, love. She's like, it's not done, this is really hard. So she finishes it and then hands it back. And I'm in like this little apartment we've rented on the Wi-Fi. And I said to Vic, okay, remember I had that conversation, I need 2 days clear to work. I got up at 4 a.m. and would work until 10:30. She'd finish her run. We'd do something in the afternoon. She'd go to bed. I'd work again, same thing, did it. And then I had my 2 days clear where I just worked. And it was 3 a.m., true story. And we had this mezzanine bedroom, so she could hear everything. So I had to hide in the bathroom. I'm finishing the book. It's 3 a.m. The deadline's in 4 hours. And I said, Ashley, and Ashley's on the phone. It's 1 a.m. And I called her. I said, Ashley, my apple's spinning. And she's like, okay, Mom, that's not good, but I believe in you. Do you remember this, Ash? She said, I believe in you. She was on the phone. She was exhausted. I believe in you. And she said it over and over and over again. And she's like, I just want to ask a quick question. You took a backup, right? I said, don't ever say that again. I believe in you. And I don't know how many times she said that. And then the apple stopped, and it saved. I've dropped it in the Dropbox. And you know, my message is the power of just one person saying, I believe in you, is all that matters. And she started out not believing. We space cleared her out. And it was the final words, ironically, that brought me home to finish the job. And so there's 5 steps for fear, 10 steps for purpose, and hashtag I believe in all of you ladies, because I believe in the sisterhood. And I believe when women support other women, that is when the world will change and we will solve the really big issues. So thank you for having me.